What's up, everybody? It's Rob Gill from Epic, and I'm here with one of my mentors, Marianne Eldredge.
What's up, Rob?
What's going on?
Not much.
Today, we're going to talk about how to manifest a successful business. In this video, we're going to talk about 3 ways to change your thinking. You know, one of the ways of changing your thinking really comes down to like the questions that you ask yourself, right? So I know for me, Marianne, before I started learning all this stuff, I used to say stuff like, why does this always happen to me?
Oh, my stomach hurts just hearing you say that.
Why does this always happen? And then Google, your brain, goes back to day one and tells you everything in your life, why you failed at this and why you failed at that. So one of the first techniques I learned, and I'd love to hear what you have to say, is what can I learn from this and have fun?
I love that. I love that fun is one of your core principles, because if we're not having fun, then it's not worth doing.
Exactly.
Right? So, and you mentioned Google. Yep. And that the brain is so cool, because the brain is actually the thing that invented Google. You know what I mean? So the brain can only produce what it already knows how to do. So if you're watching this and you've got like a phone in your pocket or something, try this out. Go to your phone and look up how many pictures of, here's what you type into Google. Don't show me pictures of kittens. Type in those words. Don't show me pictures of kittens. Do you know what happens?
I can't wait to hear.
8 million pictures of kittens.
Yes.
But why did that happen? And it's hard, because we're like, well, I told you not to do that. So why did you find those things for me? And that goes back to what we were saying. Why is this so hard? Like, and our brain's only going to do what it's told.
Yes.
And
to that point of kittens, you have negative certainty or negative reinforcement, just like when you're growing up. And, you know, I know my parents did the best job they could, non-judgment. But when you have a lot of negative reinforcement and or your neighborhood or your environment, you get a sense of comfort and certainty in that. And unless you could break that pattern, you have to be aware of it first.
Absolutely. We call that most people call it the comfort zone, right? We call it the familiar zone, because it's not always that comfortable. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So you talk about these negative qualifiers, this don't business. Yep. You know, if I'm going to say don't, the brain doesn't care about that.
Yep.
It's going to focus on whatever it can see.
Yes.
So in this kittens example, it's going to say, well, I'm going to show you pictures of kittens.
Exactly.
And why does this always happen to me? Negativity. Your brain's just going to obey your prompt and say, I'm going to find all the reasons.
And why questions are endless loop questions, and they remind you over and over again why you're such a failure.
That's spiral, right? Yeah. I'll never forget, I was shoveling my driveway one time, and I was in the muck, you know, when life was really, really hard. My relationships were struggling. I was broker than broke. And I was on the phone with my mom, and I was like, oh, why is my life so hard? Yeah. You know, my mom, in her infinite wisdom, she said, that question has no good answers. And I was like, oh, I got to change my questions.
So for anyone that's watching this right now, and I wish somebody would have told me to change that question 20, 30, even 40 years ago, I'm approaching 50. I wish somebody would have said to me, what can I learn from this? And at the same time, have fun while I'm going through the process. The second step that we're going to talk about is thoughts, actions, and results. And trust me, there's no better example than what Marianne has been able to do over the last 3 or 4 years.
I got to tell you, I mentioned I was broke before, broke in every way. Like people know what it feels like to feel broken. Your emotions, your relationships, definitely your bank account. When you look at that number and your stomach hurts,
it's like zero,
right, or less. Like when you're borrowing money you don't have.
Yeah, at high interest.
Yeah, when that guy on the street that's begging is $100,000 richer than I am, that's a problem, right? So the way we think about circumstances is going to perpetuate whatever cycle we're on. So with your results, and let's just say you're looking at the results you already have. And in my case, it was results of being so poor, really terrible interest rates, if we're going to get financial on it. Yep. We're talking about terrible relationships, and it's just this mess of how I'm doing one thing is affecting everything else. Yep. All the results are the same. How I think about those results is going to cause me to act on those results and reproduce more. So we talked about that spiral, right?
Absolutely.
So if I see those results and I'm like, oh, this feels so heavy. Why am I so bad at this? What's that going to produce more of?
More bad.
More of the same thing. But if I do that number step 1 and I know this cycle, thoughts, actions, results, I can change how I think about the results I already have. The results don't even have to change in order for me to change my thinking. So in my position, I remember, I'll never forget this. I was driving down the freeway, going 85 miles an hour. Don't tell anyone. But I was thinking about this moment in my life as if it had already happened. This feeling of, like, this feeling of I did it.
Spiritual awakening?
Right. Well, it's kind of like, and I had nothing to show for it. I had nothing to prove it. I had no results to reflect or give me a reason to feel this way. It was for no good reason at all. And I just felt like I did it. And if I already felt like I did it, how do I reverse engineer the success?
That's the question you ask yourself.
Yes, exactly. Because I
Wow.
knew the results and the thoughts and the actions were all tied together. I just didn't know in what order.
So for anyone that's watching us right now, right? Because that's, I mean, you've gone from here to here.
Mm-hmm.
How?
More like from here to here. I still got more to go.
Yes. When you're being coached, or especially initially, and you heard things that you might not have liked or were scared to act on, how were you able to overcome that? I'm curious for myself.
Well, yeah, it's called cognitive dissonance.
Mm.
You know, a cognitive dissonance, right? It's these things
Hold
that
up. Take that and rewind it back. Go ahead.
cognitive dissonance. It's like when you have two notes that don't make sense together. You have to listen to the people that are successful.
Yeah.
You have to listen to what they're saying. I'm like, okay, would Rob Gill ever think this way? Would Rob Gill ever say, I'm not enough? Listen, I look at this guy's success and I know that he would never say that about himself. He would never doubt his own worth. He would never doubt his own success. And I have to say, if I want the results that he has, then I have to think the way that he does, which means I have to think differently than I currently do. Because if I don't, I'm just going to repeat last year's results.
Yeah. Thank you. That's awesome. Step 3. And by the way, distinctions and riches are in the niches. How do you qualify your self-talk? And most importantly, how are you aware of it?
This is a really great question. I'm a master of language because I love it so much. You know, I don't know how many people out there read ancient texts or whatever, but there's this phrase in there that says, your words create your world. Your words create your world. And it's very literal. You see, most people, when I ask them, what's your number one fear? They can tell me right on the spot. And they feel scared about it and they feel anxious about it. But when I ask them, what do you want? They give me this potpourri answer. And you know how I feel about potpourri.
Yep.
Potpourri smells great, but nobody really knows what it is. Okay? So when you're asking for what you want, not only do you have to be clear, but you have to claim it as if it's already happened. If I talk to someone who's ever experienced depression and they say, oh, I feel so sad all the time, or I am sad, they're making sad like a definition of them, right?
Their bodies,
Oh,
their voice is low, their shoulders are drooped.
You can see it in their body language.
Yeah.
And if I ask them, what do you want to feel? Here's what they tell me. They say, I want to feel happy, which isn't now, it's later.
In the future, yeah.
And then I ask them to upgrade it and they say, well, maybe I'll consider the possibility that I'm going to be happy. Well, it's a step closer.
Yeah, if there's something you could be happy about, what would it be and how would it make you feel?
Yeah, and it's great. But going to is not now. Where is it?
Exactly.
It's still in the future.
Yep.
If you're going to change the way you experience your results, change the inner workings of your body and your mind, you have to claim it as if it's already happened. So instead of, like, you can no longer allow yourself to say, I am sad, or I am a failure, or I can't do it. You have to use present tense language. I am happy.
Yes.
I rejoice in my success. I'm hugely, wonderfully successful. Not going to be, not will be, not want to be. I am.
Yeah, and you know, to the fabulous Marianne Eldredge is just dropping mics all over the place. And does this tie back into business? Absolutely. Let me be very clear. And when she talked about vocabulary, she reminds me of what I heard one of the major influencers out there talk about: transformational vocabulary. I think there's 75,000 words in a dictionary. Each and every person out there throughout their life probably uses 2,400 words. However, habitually, they use 200 words a day. And oh, by the way, 4,000 words are based on emotions, and 3/4 of those words are negative. So self-talk, that's where it's at.
It's very important because, listen, you might be in a business, but your business started with a person, and that's you.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience.
My pleasure, Rob.
Unbelievable.
You're amazing.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
We're dropping videos like this every day, and if you want to hear more content, please click the link below and subscribe.